So, someone who I think has gone through a very interesting evolution recently is Ana Kasparian from the Young Turks, because she is hardcore liberal. Anyone who watches her knows she would pretty much never vote for Trump, and historically has been known to be very opinionated to the point where you either love her or hate her. But in recent years, I've seen her come around in many ways. For example, when she admitted she was wrong on her stance on Trump supporters.
And so I'm like, like trying to get his bicycle like up the stairs, and all of a sudden this man stops me. His name's Jeff. And he's like, hey, let me help you out with that. And he starts helping me out. He stopped everything he was doing to help me out. And then Jeff and I became very close. You know, he was my favorite person in the entire building. And one day we're in an HOA meeting. One of the people living in the building said something about Trump that was negative. And Jeff whispers in my ear, oh, she's going to start trashing Trump. I'm out of here. And it hit me that he's a Trump supporter. We had never talked about politics before. So I got to know Jeff before I knew what his politics were. Incredibly kind guy. He helps everyone in this building with anything they might need. And so that woke me up to, wait a minute, not all Trump supporters are like dangerous, evil individuals. And it was stupid that I thought that to begin with. Like, I'm embarrassed admitting that, but it's just how I believed. And I think that politics has substituted religion to some extent. People have almost like this religious zealotry toward their political beliefs. And when that happens, it's really difficult to have a conversation with someone without it immediately devolving into allegations of bad faith, of, lying, deception, all sorts of things. And so maybe that's part of it. I am 1,000,000% guilty of honestly allowing him to kind of break my brain for a little bit. Because I saw him as such a significant threat.
And honestly, kudos to her for admitting that she was part of the divisiveness. Because oftentimes you'll hear people who knowingly spread that, and this isn't unique to one party, but people will say such hateful things about people on the other side of the political aisle, and then say, well, the other side's more evil. But this sort of self-awareness is what makes people human, and people should be allowed to learn from their mistakes. And she has the objectivity to know when her own party does wrong. Case in point, when she was on Megyn Kelly.
There's been this growing culture among the Democratic Party in particular, where there seems to be a lack of self-reflection, kind of taking note or inventory of some of the policies that we've been championing or supporting, endorsing. Once some of those policies are implemented, there might be flaws, there might be some issues that policymakers didn't see coming into it. I mean, I used to be under the assumption, and this was, I guess, a terrible assumption to have because it's not true, that there would be a recalibration of some of these policies in order to actually serve the best interests of the American people. But what I've noticed, certainly on a local level, is that there's absolutely no self-reflection, no recalibration of said policies. There seems to be more interest in serving the egos and, the narcissism of Democratic leadership. And so the cover-up involving Joe Biden's mental decline really bothered me. The fact that he was pushed out of, running for re-election and then Kamala Harris was anointed really bothered me, especially when, the whole centerpiece of the Democratic campaign was protecting democracy. Well, Democratic voters didn't get a say in who their Democratic nominee would be. So there are all sorts of issues. And it doesn't mean that I've completely changed my political identity. If anything, I'm holding true to my political identity. And I feel that the Democrats do a lot of projection. They like to point fingers at the right for engaging in all sorts of nefarious behavior, but then they themselves engage in the same nefarious behavior. One of the things that they believe they did wrong was they didn't break campaign finance laws enough by having the campaign coordinate with the super PACs. That's against the law. They accused Trump of doing that without providing any evidence. And then they said, we need to stop listening to our lawyers and we need to do a little more of what the Trump campaign did. I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially the message. Yeah. That goes against my values and principles.
Anna, I've been watching your evolution and your sort of speaking out about your ideas with great interest. It's been very interesting. I feel like in some ways I experienced something similar myself, where I was certainly more, I think, on the left 10 years ago than I am now, for sure. But I see what you're going through, and I think a lot of people can relate to where it's like you just get so aggravated with shit breaking down that you believed in. You feel like you have no choice but to just start calling it out.
And Megyn, she calls out leftist BS all the time, so if you're coming across in a way that's at least somewhat relatable to her, that says something. And another instances of this was recently when she was on Tucker Carlson's show, and the two found common ground on the Israel-Palestine conflict.
You really can't deny what you're seeing on the ground in Gaza. You can't deny what's happening in the West Bank, not just in regard to Palestinians, Palestinian Muslims, but also Palestinian Christians. You can't deny the fact that that one and only Catholic church in Gaza was bombed, was attacked. You can't deny the fact that churches have been targeted in the West Bank as well. People can lie to us as much as they want, but the videos are out there.
How do you blow up a church if you've got munitions, laser-guided munitions that are so sophisticated that they can take out a guy in an SUV from 30,000 feet? How do you blow up a church with a giant cross on top of it?
It was just an accident, Tucker. It was an accident.
It's not the first church that's
No,
been blown
it's
up.
not. And it wasn't an
close.
accident. It wasn't an accident.
Which, by the way, if you didn't know, she's referring to the Greek Orthodox Church in Gaza City that was bombed in 2023. And look, I totally get the side that Hamas goes among the common folk to shield itself, but one thing has become abundantly clear. Israel needs to make attempts to try and limit civilian casualties, but there's been no concerted effort to do so. And I try to be nuanced here, which I'll go into in a bit, but you really can't ignore that at this point, it's about more than just destroying Hamas.
Can anyone get an answer?
I know the answer. Israel wants a Jewish state and they want to expand. They have something known as the Greater Israel Project. They intend to annex the whole of the West Bank. In fact, Miriam Adelson legally bribed Donald Trump to ensure that that happens. And Israel announced that that's what they're going to do, and they're doing it. So when they bomb the church, it's because they don't want the church. That land is supposed to be part of the Jewish state.
You're not allowed to use my tax dollars to bomb churches.
Well, that's what they're doing. When it comes to Gaza, Hamas is so dumb because the atrocities they committed on October 7th gave Netanyahu and the Israeli government the perfect excuse to essentially do what they've always wanted to do, which is take that land. They're going to take that land. That's what they want. They're going to ethnically cleanse whatever remains of the Palestinian people. They're going to force neighboring countries probably to absorb 2 million people. Jared Kushner, by the way, soon after October 7th happened, was salivating on camera about how that's prime real estate. It's disgusting. But anyway.
How can you move 2 million people right now?
Well, there was a story published this week, I believe it was in the New York Times, where Netanyahu and the Israeli government was in talks with our government in regard to getting aid from the United States in moving Palestinians out of Gaza. Deir al-Balah is the last remaining portion of Gaza that still has some structures that people can live in. And they're currently doing a ground invasion there. They got to destroy it, of course. It's so obvious what's happening and it's so unjust. And this is the area where what democracy? I have no power. The government's going to take part of my earnings that I worked really hard for, not to help my fellow American citizens who might need health care, who might have fallen on hard times and can't feed their families and need help with food assistance. It's not going to go to them. It's going to go toward the bombs that are terrorizing people in Gaza, the West Bank. By the way, it's going to expand further than that. They've already annexed part of Syria. It's unbelievable. I have no ability to change it. It seems like the electorate in this country have no ability to change it because it doesn't matter which party you vote for, whether it's a Democratic presidential candidate or a Republican presidential candidate, they're going to get elected and they're going to get dog walked by whoever the prime minister of Israel is at the time.
Okay, so that last part she said was spot on, and it shines a light on a lot of our frustrations. Why are we involved in foreign wars just because politicians are bought and paid for by AIPAC, which still, by the way, isn't registered as a foreign agent, and so they have no accountability to anyone here. Because if we do stuff on their behalf, there needs to be a benefit to us. And in a way, this brings up a broader point. And I might get labeled an anti-Semite by Zionists, but that's far from the truth. I've been called on my own channel a Zionist. Why? Because I've called out people who defend Hamas as numbskulls, and I hold tight to that belief. But maybe I was focused heavily on the rise of anti-Semitism, and I still believe it's real and serious. I've even had people tell me in reference to anti-Semitism here, it's not that big of a deal to me. I don't really care about that issue, to be honest. I care more about Gaza. And I'd look down on them. I'd be dismissive, because it is selective outrage, and honestly, I still believe those people to be intellectually lazy and dishonest to a degree. But at the same time, I'm starting to get it. Gaza is impossible to ignore. The videos are gut-wrenching. These babies starving, being blown to bits. And anti-Semitism, while it's real and the Jewish community deserves to have their voices heard, I can understand why it doesn't seem as important to some people and they're okay with Jewish people being collateral damage. It boils down to compassion fatigue. When everything is labeled as anti-Semitic by people like Ben Shapiro, you get numb to it when it actually happens. Or worse, you have people like Ana Kasparian who lose it when smeared as an anti-Semite, like she did on Piers Morgan the other day.
Can you honestly, hand on heart, defend what is happening on a daily basis with all these Palestinians being slaughtered at food sites? And don't just say it's all Hamas, because it's not.
I laud and applaud them every day who have set a standard that will be virtually impossible for any Western country to match in a future war. In a dense urban environment, Israel has one of the lowest combatant-to-civilian ratios of modern warfare. Israel has actually given more aid into Gaza than pre-October 7th. This is a genocide that could be alleged genocide that could be stopped at any point should the Hamas government decide to release the hostages and surrender. This war can end the minute Hamas surrenders and returns the hostages. In fact, there's a ceasefire deal on the table right now that Adam Bowler, who's the U.S. envoy for hostages, and Steve Witkoff have repeatedly offered to Hamas. The only party that has rejected that ceasefire is Hamas.
I mean, it might be true that this certain ceasefire was rejected by Hamas, but let's not forget that Israel has also violated ceasefires. Never will I side with Hamas, and I've said anytime Hamas makes claims that I wouldn't believe them. But now, I don't know if I can take Israel at face value anymore. I just don't.
I am proud of what Israel has done. Certainly, innocent civilians are being killed, which is a tragedy. But we do not judge the efficacy, the validity, or the justification on a war on how many civilians are being killed. That is not how you judge a war. The fact that they have provided more aid into Gaza post-October 7th than pre-October 7th is something I'm very proud of. And if you believe that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is not doing enough...
The fact that they shoot at people as they're waiting in line for humanitarian aid. Dozens of people get shot and killed literally every single day. Every single day as they're waiting for food. No, I'm not going to let you filibuster, bitch. I'm not going to let you filibuster. I'm not going to let you filibuster. I get that you're Jewish. I get that this is about your identity. I get that you want to defend your people. But sometimes you can't defend the indefensible. How many people need to die for you to be pleased with this slaughter campaign that's currently going on? How many? Tell me. I find it so unbelievably evil. Unbelievably evil. It shocks my conscience and my soul. Watching these images, looking at these videos, seeing all these kids, desperate, hungry, parentless, trapped in Gaza. And you're sitting here and you're defending it. I can't stand it. I can't listen to it. The filibustering is unbearable. It's unbearable.
Will you call on Hamas right now to surrender and release the hostages? Do it. Do it right now. Say, I
called out Hamas. I called out Hamas from the very beginning. I've got no love for Hamas. It's a terrorist organization. What they did was wrong. I cried over the atrocities that they engaged in on October 7th. You want to? Yes, I did. You should watch the Young Turks. That's where you'll see exactly what I had to say about Hamas after October 7th. I even trashed elements of the left who refuse to criticize Hamas for what they did. Okay, so you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to that issue.
You made that.
And in fact, she did call Hamas defenders out.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media and that we should be doing everything possible to combat.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
That was in Oakland during last night's city council meeting. And it's really hard to overstate. And I'm going to try to be open-minded, understanding, and not use the rhetoric that I really want to use, like the fact that I can't overstate how much I despise these people and how self-indulgent and stupid they are. And yes, that is an ad hominem attack. That is exactly what it is. But it's also the perfect description, okay, to let everyone know who these people really are. Day after day, I come on this show and I condemn what the IDF's been doing. I've been condemning the various international war crime violations that Israel has engaged in. But I'm also not an idiot, and I don't fall for propaganda by a group of people who carried out some of the most vicious atrocities against innocent civilians in Israel. I don't need to carry water for them, and I don't need to fall for their stupid propaganda. But unfortunately, there's some fragment of the left, and I'm hoping it is a tiny, tiny fragment of the left, that's stupid enough to look at propaganda videos where Hamas is releasing the hostages. And I don't know, some of the family members of the hostages that are being released might still be held captive by Hamas. And so when you see the hostages who are being released wave to the cameras and awkwardly look like they're happy about the situation, could it be that they're concerned about their family members who are still held captive by Hamas, which, by the way, also committed international war crimes by, kidnapping innocent Israeli civilians?
And so for those who see her as just some anti-Semite, she is far from it, and she is consistent in her views. And this is why these kind of conversations, like between Ana and Tucker, who vehemently disagree on a lot of things, are important, because liberal or conservative, you can still defend the Jewish community while advocating to end genocide and ethnic cleansing. And you can advocate from both sides of the aisle to not fund foreign wars that don't benefit us in any way, because being America first is not unique to one party. But guys, I want to thank you all for watching this video as always, and if you appreciated my commentary, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, hopefully I've earned a subscription. Here's some more videos for you to watch in the meantime. Until next time, peace out.